of us, but it's new orientation for Marshall and John. And we said we'd have two presentations, one stewardship and finance area and the other from the worship area. So let's start with stewardship and finance. So you got some new elders here, and there are a bunch of other elders you've been serving with that you want to remind them of some important things. So Susan and Ron, I'll let you take over and say what you want to say.
Ron, why don't you go forward with the stewardship, and then when you're finished, I'll go over the financials.
Okay, very well. First off, this is the end of my term as elder for this session and everything. And so I want to thank everyone for their help, and it's been a pleasure working with everyone. So in case I'm not here next month, I won't be back in January. It's been a pleasure to serve on the finance team. We've had some great participation from everyone in the congregation in improving our finances. And I think I really want to thank Susan Mann for taking over as the treasurer and our primary accountant, because it's the financial reports, I think most people can agree, are much more understanding. And it took someone with her knowledge of QuickBooks to make that happen. And she made it happen pretty quickly once she took over. So thank you, Susan, for that. And we appreciate that. So as far as the stewardship, she's going to need some help there. So hopefully some of you new guys can step up and come on the stewardship and help her with that. I'm not sure if I will be able to do that in January. But the main thing is to assess what our needs are as far as our financial needs. And also we have some special offerings that we promote. Coming up is the Christmas Joy offering, which is very important for the retired pastors and lay people that work with the church. I think Susan and John done a great job, and Susan Cord is working on the Deacons Fund and improving that we need to continue doing that and support our people that work in our church. And so we need to promote that coming up. And then we also have the one great hour sharing that comes up, I believe, in April. Is that correct?
Right in front of Easter, whenever.
Yeah,
Easter
right in front of Easter. Yeah, so that one's another one, important one. So that we need to do, and that helps with disaster funds and feeding people and things of that nature. So those are two great things. The rest of our time is spent on funding our church and our mission. And I think we're going to have a difficult challenge this year. Normally we start with a budget in January, and we start with what we spent last year, but that's not going to happen this year, because we're going to have to look at that on a significant basis as far as what shortcomings we're going to have. And we know that we don't have the thrift shop operating. So that was our mission fund and our building fund. So that's gonna be for a while, until we at least get a vaccine that's been distributed to where people can go back to normal life. So that's going to be a while before we get that. And also we don't have income from our Weight Watchers and things of that nature. So that was a significant part of our income as well. So we're going to have to look at the budget from the standpoint of what we are going to have, minus those, plus minus the people that aren't coming to church and would contribute through cash donations. So that's another significant part. So Susan, you're going to have to put together some kind of a scenario of what we are getting currently from our current donations and offerings. So we're going to put it together, a budget in January. Someone will need to be assigned to envelopes, offering envelopes. We'll need to assign someone to that. I mean, if you wanted me to do that, I could do it because they come to my house and I deliver them to the church. So you just have to tell me how many. I can continue to do that next year, possibly. But that's going to be it. So I can't think of anything else that needs to be discussed. Anybody got any questions as far as what we need to do?
I just have one question. Are the offering envelopes being used? Do you actually see them?
Some
come back?
people, yeah. Okay, that's a good question. Because some people request them and they still want them. For the most part, they've been diminished over time. Because people give, I mean, just like myself, I have the bank cut a check and sends it once a month. And I think a lot of people are doing that.
Mhm.
So they don't need to be done. Now, there is a system of their counting. I wish Dick was here to answer that question, because Dick would probably answer that question best. But there's a lot of ways they're accounting for those things. They're using them and assigning them offering envelope numbers. And I think you could change all that, Susan, where there's a lot less of those needed. So
We have got tons of those things coming out of our ears.
yeah,
And what I've been doing, Dick isn't involved in it anymore. And what I've been trying to do is, if we have a person that needs one, I'll take one of the boxes that isn't being used and white out or black out the number and put the person's new number on it and then give it to them. And we've got a whole bunch of them for 2020 that people never came and got.
yeah, those won't be able to be reused because the calendar dates are all be different.
That's right.
So you got to order new ones. So it would be nice to know, how many do we really need? We ordered, I can't remember, 120 or something like that last year. And we still had a significant amount left over. So
Is there any way, is there any way we can query the people about and ask them straight out, do you want the envelopes? Do you not want the envelopes?
we
Yeah, I
did
think
that on the
Pledge card.
pledge cards.
Okay.
And I think we got some response there, but some people missed that. So it's another thing you can, the thing about when we're talking about it now, the problem is that I guess we can still do that. We still need to do a pledge campaign as well. Once we have the budget done, we need to do a pledge campaign and put together a budget package that kind of spreads the broad brush of what we need as far as expenditures.
Yeah.
And present that to the congregation. And of course, the congregation has to vote on the budget once we have established it with the session. So
Mhm.
all those things have to be done.
Actually, let me do a little time out there and just give a time frame and adjustment. If the committees, everybody's going to be kind of new, a new year, but January and February, we try to get the committees to submit what they prognosticate as being their expenses for the year, what kind of past expenses they've had, what kind of new things they want, all of that in the light of COVID, et cetera. And then we put together a straw budget and use that for what we promote to the congregation, saying this is what we're trying to raise and we need you to ante up to be a part of that. And at the same time, say that we're not asking you to give to the budget, but give to the Lord, and whatever 10% comes to basically. And, if it's over that, it's over the budget, and that's great. The congregation gets a report about the budget in the annual meeting, but they don't need to vote on the budget. That's something that the session does. We have a fiscal year that starts on April 1st. So in our March meeting, we need to ratify that straw budget, make any changes up or down. And of course, budgets are dynamic. So we found that out already this year, that we just went, oh, well, we're not meeting and the income isn't there. So everybody changed their committee budget. So it's not set in stone. So those are little pin the tail on the donkey comments. Okay, go ahead, Ron, whatever else you have.
No, that's about pretty much what I had to say about it, and Susan, you could talk about the accounting aspects of it, and if there's any issues. And I think they want to do some things, make sure that our expenses are correctly identified. I don't know if those things have been corrected or not, where we make sure that they have been applied to the correct, account numbers, so forth. So, go ahead, Susan.
Let me just, before Susan, you jump in there, while we were talking about stewardship, I want to say that it's really good. It's important that every elder on the session be a part of pledging. It's odd to be an officer and not pledge. And it's great if we can be out in front, because that's where leaders are, out in front saying, follow me. So when we get there, I hope that you'll just kind of keep what I said in mind. Go ahead, Susan.
As you see, every month I send out a treasurer's report where I try to take what's gone on in the month and explain what the variances were and why they were. You get a balance sheet, which shows all of our bank accounts and our investment accounts. Those are reconciled each month, so those balances are correct. We have our liabilities. The largest liability is the $28,000, which is the payroll protection loan that we haven't gotten any indication back about when they're going to want it paid back, or when they're going to want the paperwork on it. I create the income statement.
Is that the loan that you got for us, Jeff?
Yeah, it's actually a grant, and if it's
We
the
don't pay
terms
that
were,
back.
the terms are, if we used it for payroll as we applied for, that it'll be forgiven. Although I think what Susan's referring to is the whole paperwork that says, oh yeah, you did
It
it.
has to be forgiven, yeah.
It
It has to be
Takes a
forgiven
whole lot
before
of
we can take it
paperwork.
off as
The paperwork hasn't come in where we've said, oh, yeah, you've done it right, and yeah, we've forgiven it. We're still waiting for that to happen.
Okay.
And they keep saying they're working on it, but we, every so often, like Jeff sees, we get an email that says we're working on it, but they haven't sent us anything yet.
There are going to be a lot of people and organizations across the country sucking wind if it turns into a loan instead of the grant that they first thought. So,
Well, you have to, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of justification that you have to go through. And it's not, from the way I read it, it's not just a matter that they just forgive it. They have parameters that you've got to fall in when you
Sure.
submit those payroll reimbursements. You have to count part-time people as a half a person, and there's all kinds of variations of it. So, I mean, I haven't seen anything definitive enough yet to know.
let's go ahead and move on.
As far as Ron's question about whether things are posted correctly, if I get a bill for something that isn't a routine bill, I go out looking for these type of things that were created. Each department or each team has a different colored paper. You have to take your expense, get it signed off by the chair, and tell me what you're using it for. And you see that most people's are this size. The admin is a full sheet of paper because they have so many departments. And based on the information I'm given, that's the account that the bill is charged to. Most of our checks are written through PNC. They're online bill pay. That saves us the postage and the check. And then if you need a check, I'm happy to write one there for you there at the office. All you've got to do is tell me. From QuickBooks, I'm able to reprint a profit and loss performance report. It's quite detailed. It shows you the current month, the budget for that month, the actual for the year to date, and then the year to date budget and the annual budget. To me, that's it's too much information. So what I try to do is on the first page of the profit and loss, I try to identify the current month as the actual and the current month as the budget. So you more or less know what you're looking at. And then I go through and I put a number by each one of the items, like number one is the profit. And so when you look at my report with the explanation of the income, you see where that number comes from. So you don't have to dig through the whole thing. And then as you go through the report, it's divided up by the admin, at the repairs and maintenance, the landscaping, office supplies, all the different categories are there. All the team expenses are like congressional life, outreach, and you have the current month and the year-to-date information. And then when you get down to page 4, that's where your total expenses are. That's number 2. Number 3 is the non-budgeted. When we set up the budget this year, we created a category, Ron and I did, to be able to identify things that were not budgeted and not include them in the budget, because what happens is if you include things, non-budgeted things in the regular account numbers, you throw the budget way off. Number 4 is the net in, or is the total income less the expenses. We actually had a net income of $166. If you look at Fidelity Investments, that's one of our investments that's tied to the market. Their values go up and down. Well, it just happens that they're in an up mode right now. And we've got, after you take into consideration their value, we have 13.5 as income. There's another report that I can print, which is a breakdown of the accounts that go into your particular department. I do one every month for Ken for his admin and B&G breakdown. That allows you to see exactly what it goes into your accounts. And if any of you would like to have that report, I would be happy to do it for you. All you need to do is let me know that you're looking for it. That's basically the accounting in a nutshell.
I would
Yeah,
just
questions?
like to add that the report that I get from Susan for the admin budget has been very, very helpful. And of course, we have been monitoring it with great care. You know, when we actually took our budget and cut 30% out of it, I'm happy to report that we're maintaining that 30% cut between the landscaping and fertilizing and stuff like that. We, as I see it, we could continue to do the same thing next year. The only real problem I have is staff for our group, the B&G group. And there's lots of things that can be done. We have put several of these in the back burner just because we don't want to break our budget. Okay, thank you again, Susan, for these numbers. That's very, very helpful for us going forward. I appreciate that.
Thank you for the kind words.
Oh,
Anybody else have questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
go ahead, Jen.
The reports that Susan gives us are really thorough and it's great. And session depends on each team chair to isolate its own expenses for the month and be prepared to explain those if session has any question about it at the stated meeting. Please.
And I know that Susan would welcome comments and questions before the meeting. Sometimes if you asked her right in the middle of the meeting, probably 9 times out of 10, she could answer it. But if you gave her a heads up about the question, she would certainly have the answer by the time the meeting comes around. So we're expecting everybody to read reports. They're usually to you by Sunday. When we're in person, they're in the box by Sunday morning. So you have hard copies and you certainly can get the electronic copies by then. And so if everybody would do the reading of those ahead of time, that'll make these meetings go faster and deeper. I think one other thing I would comment on is that we have developed a good thing in my mind is the online giving. We do that through the Presbyterian Foundation, and we've gone from just one or two people doing it to a bunch of people doing it. So I'm glad that we've got that set up. And the people who, Dick, I think, mainly has been picking up the offering basket and getting it into the safe. If not him, it's been Susan. And then it's counted on Monday morning. Generally, there's somebody like Phyllis and Susan, sometimes Dick, before we had Virginia Paddock. But that's when that happens and the deposit gets to the bank. Any other questions about stewardship and finance? Okay.
Yeah, I had a question, sorry. I just
Yeah.
wanted to know if there's been a significant change in membership of the church or anything. I mean, from last year, same.
Jane, if I remember your clerk's report, it said 158, and that was transitioning Marshall and Patsy from affiliated to regular member. And we have been in the 150s for a number of years, basically, when you do the additions, subtractions.
Yes, that's correct. It's been pretty stable. It's about 160, give or take 5 at any, throughout the year.
I'm not sure how many people we have that's pledging on an annual basis from a standpoint of percentage of total membership. I know, of course, we have, Doris and I have our pledge. We have one pledge, but there's 2 people, so I'm not sure how that all adds up. But it would be nice to know the total membership that actually does pledge.
I can check it Monday when I go in because I do all the input of the donations to Power Church. So I can.
Yeah, you do have to take into account, there might be one person, 2 people involved in that one pledge. So
Usually they have the same envelope number. They're not going to have 2 envelope numbers, and that's how it records it.
Yeah, usually we transition from talking about members to giving units because of those family groupings, and then to know how many giving units and then what percentage are actually pledging. I've asked for that data over the years, and we have kind of held. I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's hard to make it tick up or down. It has a constancy to it. I do think what would be interesting to keep an eye on is that this online business means that we are reaching a whole bunch of people across the country. On any given week, the streaming gets seen by 150 to 250 people. And I hope that somewhere along the line, some of those people will feel some loyalty and identify maybe not as official members, but as some kind of virtual member, and that will translate into prayer and financial support. So we'll just have to wait and see if there's some kind of morphing that happens about the way we see finances and membership. All right, great job. Let's turn now to worship. And Mary and Cammie, if you want to tell us not only about worship, but presbytery and things that you would like new elders and all the remaining elders to be reminded of.
I'm going to do the worship team part of it, and Cammie's going to do the Christian ed and presbytery part of it. Right, Cammie?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, Cammie?
Basically, whatever happens in the sanctuary is part of the worship team. The liturgy, ushers, Christmas decorations, Lenten devotionals, Advent devotionals, the flowers. For the most part, Jeff gets the guest ministers when he's away, but that goes along with the worship team, and conferring with Jeff periodically on what's going on with the worship team. One of the things too, as far as worship is concerned, when we do any kind of worship service, be it a funeral or Sunday morning service or special Lenten services or whatever, even concerts, it is incumbent upon elders to be there as much as they can for any event that we hold in the church, because we are the church representatives. So even at a funeral, if we don't know the person who passed away and or their family, still as a representative of the church, we should, as many of us as possible, should be there. And that way too, we're a visible presence to those who belong to our church, to know who the leaders of the church are and who they can come to for whatever their needs are.
Can I jump in right here?
Sure.
And when you're
What if I said
here,
no?
huh?
What if I said no?
I guess I would have been quiet. And when you're here for whatever those are, in a sense, I can put it this way, you're not here as a civilian. You're going to have to wait until you're over your 3-year term. And even then, because you're ordained for life, you're just on rotation, you're off the bench, and you still have to be thinking, I'm a stakeholder and I'm a leader in the church. But especially when you are a sitting elder, when you're present, if somebody looks lost, you're the one who goes up and says, can I help you? If there's a piece of trash that's blowing up to the front door and you're walking up, you're the one who picks it up. And if you see somebody crying, you go up to them and you say, I'm an elder, how can I listen to you and pray for you? If you see somebody you don't know, you go up and say, I'd like to welcome you to our church. I'm one of the elders. You have that so you're not only in attendance, but you're in attendance kind of with that you've been deputized, and you're wearing your little star, your elder star, and acting appropriately. Anyway, thanks for letting me say that.
And to let you know what's going on as far as Christmas this year, for decorating, we do not have Teen Challenge coming, but I have enlisted Fred Augenstein and how many of his tall sons can come and help us, plus Andrew and his family and other members of the church. We will not be decorating the gathering room since no one's gathering there. And but we will be decorating the sanctuary, and we will not have the poinsettias we usually have. We will have poinsettias, but not the way we usually do. So we've, had to tone things down and do things a little differently than we have in the past as far as Christmas is concerned. But basically, for any worship service, communion, we do the communion prep, and we have Tammy heads up the communion team to make sure that goes according to Hoyle. And of course, communion's been a little different. And I know there have been complaints about those little communion cups, creamers, communion creamers that we're using. But unless someone else has a better way of doing communion, that's the way we have to do it to eliminate hands-on serving the communion on Sundays. So basically, does anybody have any questions? No, apparently not.
Okay, let's shift over to Cami then.
Okay. I've been involved with Zooming with Presbytery, and doing so, Mary and I both did classes with FISH, which is called the Fresh Ideas Start Here, which was interesting to hear what other churches were doing. And I'm also involved in now this is ongoing, every third Monday, we do a prayer time. It's about an hour. And Cheryl Carson is heading that up. And it started out, there were 5 of us, and this past Monday we had 12. So that's comforting to know other people are getting involved in that. And it's really neat to hear what other churches are doing and how they're handling the COVID problems, knowing what we're doing or not doing. So it's been interesting to know that. And let's see, the other thing is COLE, C-O-L-E, is Church Officer and Leader Education. And they have online classes and information for anybody that needs it for stewardship, officer training, and just a whole slew of other things. So the Presbytery is there for all members, not just those select few of us. So if there's any questions on down the line and somebody wants to be put in touch with somebody, let me know. That's about it.
I will say that there's a Central Florida Presbytery website. I'd encourage you all to go and visit it. If it's been a while, go and visit it. If you haven't been there before as an elder, go visit it. You'll see that we have exceptional staff. Dan, Cheryl, the others are really great people and work really hard on our behalf. There are 4 Presbytery meetings a year, and so commissioners go from each church. It depends on the number of members, how many commissioners go. We have 1, and I'm a member of Presbytery, so we have 2 votes at every meeting. And one of those meetings each year is on a Saturday for those who have another working life and could not come on the usual Tuesday stated meeting. Cheryl has been doing an email. I'm not sure the regularity of it. Sometimes it seems like every week, and then sometimes either I miss it or it isn't every week. But that's usually pretty helpful, and I try to advance it to you when I see it. And the next Presbytery meeting is December 1st, and Wilma is our commissioner for that. This year, we've been doing that in a Zoom meeting fashion. So otherwise, it's commuting usually to someplace around Orlando or something like that. We did have it scheduled to be here, but then COVID hit and took it away from us hosting it on site. They have been getting pastors together every week in a Zoom meeting. Not everyone comes, but that's a time of sharing, who's trying to figure out what and whatever kind of questions. So I'm pretty regularly there for that. And so that's some of our background apparatus, which is really built to be a resource to us. Going back to the budget, in the same way that we would ask members to tithe to the congregation, congregations are members of Presbytery, and we try to tithe to the Presbytery because there's ways of being the church that we can't do just as a single congregation that we can do in the collective. And so that's always a part of our budget. It floats up and down according to what their needs are and what our abilities are.
Jeff, I may add, just because we have a commissioner that goes to the meeting, anybody else can go as a guest. So, and it's nice, particularly if it's far away, to have someone else to drive up there with you. And another thing, we're also the Christian Education Committee. We're sort of in charge of the Bible studies. But when we get back to our normal routines, if anybody has any suggestions as to other things we could do for Christian education, please speak up.
Well, anybody have any questions on either of those fronts? Next month, we'll get into a couple of the other areas that we are responsible for. But a last go around for any questions. John Marshall, do you have any questions?
I dropped a information, a test I took at the church Dropbox today. Did you get it?
I think so. I'm not the one who checks it, but Marge does a good job in checking that on a regular basis. That's a new thing. We found that in the COVID time that some people were more comfortable hand delivering checks and they would come after hours. And anyway, if she didn't check it today, she'll check it when she comes in tomorrow and get your report. Thank you. Oh, that reminds, this is just, I figure everybody knows this, but then you realize they don't know it. Our physical address is not our post address. We have a PO box. And the reason we have a PO box is when they had the mailbox, it was down by the railroad tracks and people would come by and rifle through our mail and collect checks. And so I don't know when it went to a PO box. It was before I came. And so occasionally somebody says, I sent a check to the church, 1405 Louisiana, and it came back, and we've got to reiterate. So I just wanted you to understand that fact. Okay, the next thing I have, I just come back to John Marshall. Did you have any questions so far
No.
about what we talked about?
Oh,
Okay. We are going to try to make Advent special, and Rochelle is going to do a 30-minute noon to 12:30 concert, and they're going to be online. However, we may just privately fudge a little bit, staying to our CDC guidelines. And our first thought was that the first one on December 3rd would be a treat to our elders and their partners. And that would give us, 25, 30 max. But if you'd like to come in person, if not, then tune in online, but that's going to be an Advent offering that we're going to promote not only to our congregation, but to our community. Only private invitations will be for on-site though. And you guys get the private invitation for the first one, all right? We have allowed in our opening Monday night to come into the